Pacers win in Philly. They beat the Sixers, or whatever that version of the 76ers was. It wasn't pretty, but they got it done. Why did they shoot so bad to start the game? Why were they down 16 in the first half? What did it take to win? We'll break it all down today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Saturday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today, Pacers, Sixers, a win for the Pacers. They get a road win for the first time in, I think, 4 tries, snapping a road losing streak. Pascal Siakam was cooking, another double-double for Tyrese, Haliburton, all stuff that looks like headline news. None of it was, well, Siakam kind of was, in this game, as it took a 16-point comeback for the Pacers to win. They do win by double digits. At one point, their comeback plus swing was over 30 points. They were dominant after their low point, but they had a massive low point against the air quotes Sixers in this game. Very strange game, because I learned from keeping up with Twitter during the game, my interpretation of what was happening in this game was vastly different than basically everybody else is watching the game, which does happen. That's fine. And so I want to talk about it. The Pacers did win in the end. I guess they deserve credit for that. And in the end, they shoot 49% from the field. That's pretty good, right? They found ways to get it done. They only had 10 turnovers. They won the rebounding battle. Like, okay, that's all great. So here's what happened to me in this game and why the Pacers required a 16-point comeback against a team comprised of the following 8 players. These are the 8 available players for the Sixers in this game. To be clear, you need 8 active players to play an NBA game. And former Pacer O'Shea Brissett, who had not played the NBA all season, signed a hardship 10-day on Friday to play in this game. So that was their 8th player. So on the Sixers today, Ricky Council IV, who played 37 minutes. Gershon Yabusele, very good player, had 15 rebounds, played 36 minutes. Adem Bona, a rookie, played 33 and a half. Jeff Doughton Jr., oh boy, we can talk about him, played 40. Jared Butler, good player, former Wizard, played 32 and a half. IU guy, Jalen Hood-Schifino, played 19 and a half. Alex Reese, I believe a rookie, 25-year-old two-way player, played 18 and a half. And signed that day, O'Shea Brissett played 22 minutes and 45 seconds. That was the Sixers in this game. That's a bad team, right? They want to lose. Their best player is Yabusele. All the rest of those guys are 2A or minimum, or hanging on the fringes of the league, trying to lose. The Pacers are better than them on paper. And yet here comes a dreadful start. And to be clear, we will talk about it. The Pacers have to start better. They said as much after the game. They were bad in some ways to start this game. Down 16 at, I believe, 27-43 in the middle of the second quarter. And I still thought at that time they were going to win pretty comfortably, because this was about as extreme outlier shooting as you can see to start a game. Now, let me be totally clear about what happened for the first, I'll say, 20 minutes of this game. Down 16 is bad. I tweeted that as much. You can see this. The Pacers were not getting to the rim enough. Anybody, Haliburton, any guard, was not getting into the paint, and they weren't getting good shots at the rim via their perimeter players. Siakam and Turner were okay in the first half in terms of finishing plays. Turner 6 for 11. He hit 2 threes. He was definitely their plus play finisher in the first half. He had 14 points. Siakam was 4 for 9 for 10 points. Nobody else was particularly efficient besides Obi Toppin, who made 2 shots. And we'll talk about Obi Toppin. He was good in this game. Everybody else made 1 or fewer shots on the whole team. Front court success, back court was awful. Awful. Meanwhile, the Sixers, comprised of a team that I just described to you that you probably said, I don't know any of these guys, or I know very few of these guys. Jared Butler on a 2-way. He might have gotten converted. Previous on a 2-way. 4 for 7. He hit 2 threes. Jeff Doughton, 8 for 10. 17 points at halftime. His career high entering the day was 20. Many tough contested 2-pointers. Check my Twitter feed. I tweeted screenshots of his shots. Very tough shots. He was credit. Tip your cap to Jeff Doughton. He made them. And Mbona didn't miss. Yabusele actually missed. And Ricky Council was 3 for 6. It was crazy in the first half how hot the Sixers were compared to the Pacers. And some stats for this. This is how the Pacers got in their deficit. The Pacers started 5 for 18. The Sixers at the time were 9 for 13. Tough twos versus no makes at all, right? Jeff Doughton was 5 for 5. At that time, the Pacers were 10 for 30 as a team and 5 for 13 from deep. That was the whole game at that point. At that exact moment, the Sixers' effective field goal percentage was 58.3. The Pacers was 38.3. The Pacers were shooting 20 effective field goal percentage points worse. And yet, they had only given up 36 points in 17 minutes at that time. That's great. That's good defense. The Pacers started 11 for 36. Myles Turner came in, changed the game. He was very good late in the second quarter. I've said a lot of scene to say. The Pacers were down 16. All the indicators were like, yuck, this is bad. This is a terrible start. Denny Busick said they're bad against these inferior teams to start games. What's going on? That was all bad. And I still thought the whole time they're going to win. And they were down 4 at halftime after all that. 47-51 at halftime. Pacers took a lead about 3 minutes into the third quarter. Haliburton hits a 3 with 9:46 to go in the third quarter. Pacers rolled the rest of the way. Their lead got as high as, I believe, 15, 13? 16, excuse me. So they dominated the second half. This game, as boring as it is to me to break down, was just make or miss variance. The Pacers could not make anything in the first half. I tweeted this during the first half, and this blew my mind. So PPP Stats does live tracking of effective field goal percentage expected during games. What that means is like Myles Turner takes a 17-footer. What is his percentage on 17-footer? So what is the expected effective field goal percentage of that shot? So it doesn't necessarily account for specific quality in terms of contest, openness, things like that, which actually probably would have made this favor the Pacers even more. Regardless, at one point in this game, with the Pacers down about 11 points, the expected effective field goal percentage for the Pacers was 56.2 and Philly's was 52.7, but the actual effective field goal percentage for Philly was 57.7 and for the Pacers was 39. It was crazy how much better of shots the Pacers were getting than the Sixers, but the Sixers were making tough shots and the Pacers were missing good shots. So now that I'm 7.5 minutes in and have set this scene up so well, many people, and I'm not saying the Pacers were playing well. Again, they weren't getting in the paint enough. They had some offensive rebounding issues to deal with for the Sixers. Too slow. Their bench wasn't playing particularly well in this game. Just a lot of like gross stuff. This was like almost all shot making to me. At halftime of this game, the Pacers' entire backcourt, 6 players for the Pacers: Ben Shepherd, TJ McConnell, Ben Mathurin, Aaron Nesmith, Andrew Nembhard, Tyrese Haliburton were 5 for 24. That's 20.8%. Jeff Doughton alone had more makes than that. What? That is crazy. So that is my 8-minute setup to say, even with that awful of a half, I thought, the Pacers are going to win. They're so much more talented. These shots will eventually go in and they will win. Now, you open yourself up to another bad variance half when you play that bad to start a game, but I was right. And I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm saying that to say the law of averages settled in. The Pacers made 66% of their shots in the second half without even making that many threes. They were 5 for 15 from deep in the second half, 22 for 26 on twos. That's insane. They were awesome in the paint. They got the right rim pressure. They got the right finishes. Aaron Nesmith was 3 for 3 on twos. Pascal Siakam was 7 for 9 on twos. Myles Turner made his only 2. Andrew Nembhard did not take a 2. Tyrese Haliburton was 2 for 3 on twos. Obi Toppin was 2 for 2 on twos. Thomas Bryant and TJ McConnell were 2 for 2. Bennedict Mathurin was 0 for 1, and Ben Shepherd made his only 2. That's unreal. They flipped everything inside the arc. Rim pressure got there, and they made the shots. This game should have been a cakewalk for the Pacers. 31 assists for the Pacers, 13 for the Sixers. They had no ball movement. They could not create good shots, but they were making tough ones. The Pacers were getting great shots. They couldn't make them. And then the second half, that completely flipped. The Pacers made their good shots and kept generating them, particularly more at the rim. They did play better. I'm simplifying this too much. And the Sixers stopped making these shots. The Pacers went zone a little bit. They cooked up the game. The Sixers shooting couldn't score unless your name was O'Shea Brissett. And the Pacers won. This is a little boring to say, but that is exactly how I thought this game would go. I told somebody at halftime that I talked to a lot about the team. I said, I almost guarantee they're going to win this game. I said, I literally have it in my notes. Make shots to start third quarter and they're going to win. It's just a shot-making game. I hate that it's that simple for this, but that's what it was. And so they come out in the third quarter. They still need to make a comeback. Pascal Siakam led by example in that period. And we're going to talk more about him later, but he was exceptional in that frame. 6 made shots in that quarter alone. Reminder, the Pacers' entire backcourt, 6 players made 5 shots in the first half. Siakam made 6 in just the third quarter and had a nasty chase down block. And the Pacers got to stop, and then he dunked on the other end. That set the tone for the effort the Pacers needed. So here's the other part of this. I just spent 10 and a half minutes talking about making and missing shots. Wow. Really riveting analysis. But I do think that was the story of the game. The other part of this was, I don't think their effort was bad. People kept tweeting like, oh, this is embarrassing. Where's the effort? They're not trying against this inferior team. They were trying. They couldn't make anything. But their actual focus on the things that make them great, that is what I felt like wasn't there. And what I mean by that is stuff I've already said, like getting to the paint. Anyone, right? Nesmith popped in the second half because he got to the paint. Obi Toppin popped in the second half because he was passing after getting into the paint. Siakam was rocking inside. He took 16 twos in this game. Myles Turner took 10 twos in this game, right? Once they started rocking towards the rim, they looked a lot better. Their defense went tricky with this zone. They locked in on defense in a way that made them have to play connected, and it worked, right? The Sixers actually didn't have a ton of turnovers, given that they had 8 kind of ball handlers out there, only 14, but they could not generate good shots in the second half of this game. Pacers did much better on the defensive end there. They upped their tempo, something they have to do. That's why Obi Toppin always seems to play well against the Sixers. He led the bench in minutes by far in this game, right? Everything that felt like they were doing it a little too poorly in the first half, they cleaned it up, and they were way better in the second half. Danny Busick was doing the halftime interview on FanDuel with Jeremiah Johnson and talked about how the Pacers against, whatever you want to call it, inferior teams, banged up teams, teams with guys out, whatever, have not been good for whatever reason. And maybe if you think the coaching staff stinks, we'll call it a coaching staff issue. If you think the players stink, we'll call it a player issue. I'm a players almost always kind of guy, good and bad. They did not play well to start the game in many ways, right? I am not saying that they played well and it didn't work out. What I am saying is they shot so bad, and the Sixers made so many tough shots that the start of this game and this 16-point comeback was very misleading. The Pacers, in terms of what you want to do in a basketball game, were playing better than the Sixers, even when they were down 16. They were generating the better shots. They just couldn't make them. But they stuck with it. They focused on the little details that were holding them back from playing even better. Pascal Siakam led by example. They locked in a little bit on the defensive stops, and the variance gods came their way and stopped making Jeff Doughton look like the greatest player ever. Congrats to Jeff Doughton. He was very good in this game. And the Pacers got a win. 112-100, 2 wins in a row. Makes tonight's game, this is coming out on Saturday, epically important for the Pacers. It would have been epically important anyway, but now at least they're riding a little high into it. And that is how the Pacers beat the Sixers from the story of the game. Some individuals deserve a shout. We'll talk a little bit about Pacers Bucks here and a little more from Pacers Sixers coming up here on Locked On Pacers. Before we do any of that, we need to talk about FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, if you're a new customer on FanDuel, you can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything, from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and more. Who's going to cut down the nets? You can pick your favorites. Got your eye on a few underdogs? FanDuel makes it easy to track them with spreads, with game props, with point totals, whatever. With the tournament games happening almost every day. Right now, it's conference tournament time. There's always something exciting to bet on. Selection Sunday right around the corner, and the FanDuel app is simple to use. When you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. And one more time, that is on FanDuel.com. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen, Locked On Mavs. Dante Exum's out for a while. The Pacers play the Mavs next week. Are they going to have any players? Do the Mavs have a fieldable team? That's crazy. Or listen to yesterday's Locked On Pacers. Kyle Taylor joined. We talked about youth on the Pacers roster. A highly acclaimed episode. I got many messages and texts about it. That people really liked Kyle, and I thought it was a great episode. We talked about a lot of Pacers young players, the progress they may or may not have made this year, and what it means for the long-term outlook of the team. Let's get back to Pacers Sixers. Pacers do win The best player on the Pacers, the story I was tracking a little bit along the way, and a key bench player in this game coming up. Pascal Siakam was the best Pacer, as he has been so many times this year for the team. And there's just like games like this, man. There's so many games where I feel very early, gosh, that team has nothing to put on him. Yabusele, poor guy doing his best. He's stocky. He kind of has good foot speed for his stockiness. He's like not fast enough. Adam Bona's a rookie center. Rookie counsel, Jared Butler, Jeff Dowtin, they're too small. The best answer, like on what you'd think of for size for Siakam, was O'Shea Brissett. Like they signed him that day, right? Siakam just had those advantages. He took 20 shots in the game. No other Pacer took more than 13. 8 of them came in the third quarter. He was amazing in that period. He changed the game, right? The Pacers came back and took their lead in that quarter. 8 of his 20 shots in that quarter, he made 6 of them. 7 of those were twos, and he made 6 of those 7 twos. 2 boards, a block, and an assist. Plus 16 in one quarter. 12 of the Pacers' 31 points. He was terrific in that third period. Nobody could guard him. His effort and hustle were there, and I mentioned this in the first segment, but to reiterate, since we're now talking specifically about Pascal Siakam, one, that's what he does for the Pacers. Like there's lots of guys who take on different kinds of leadership roles for this team, I would say. Siakam's is very often lead by example, right? A guy who's won a title, a guy whose voice is strong, but what he says he does, and I think you see it in games like this, where when he plays like this and gives this kind of performance, other guys follow suit, get in line. In that third quarter, when he played great and locked into a game plan, guess what? Tyrese Haliburton looked really good and had 7 points and 4 assists. Aaron Nesmith looked really good in that quarter. The bench stepped up, had some actual pop and juice for a second, even though they lost their minutes dramatically, but they were making shots. It was important that Siakam did all that. He was very good once again. They've had trouble winning games when he's had to carry of late. In Atlanta, for example, I forget his other 30-point game that they lost right before that. Was it Miami? Regardless, he had 27, 7, and 4, plus 28 in a 12-point win. They got smoked without him on the floor. But Siakam, very good, and he did all that. 27 points in under 30 minutes, 28 minutes and 40 seconds. Another terrific game for a player who, someone just wrote about this. I believe it was Fandiar Barahini. Does Siakam have an All-NBA case? I talked about Haliburton with it, and then he got hurt, and then his 2 game stints have been for his post-All-Star standards. Siakam was the All-Star for a reason. He might have a shot at this. I will talk about that potentially next week or on Sunday. But he was amazing in this game. That third quarter was very important. In the first half, it was Turner, the Pacers starting front court, after 3 quarters, had 38 of the Pacers' 78 points, a.k.a. they were 1 point away from combined having half the Pacers' points through 3 quarters of the game. Myles Turner in the first half, 6 for 11 for 14 points. The entire Pacers bench combined made 4 shots. All of their guards and wings combined made 5. Myles Turner made 6. He was very important in the first half, similar to the issues with guarding Siakam when the Sixers would put 2 on him or shade 2 guys closer to him. That gave Myles Turner chances to either punish the rim. He took a lot of shots in the lane, 9 twos in one half for him. Some of those were kind of fadey jumpers that he makes sometimes, but you'd like to see a little more power sometimes in a game like this one that felt like they were kind of waxing and waning with focus. But then he found some power with some dunks and some oomph on the inside, and he looked great to close that second quarter and really throughout the game. That was very important too. That front court combo being that good and typically having that kind of connection was important in a game like this because that's where the most vets are for the Pacers is in the front court, and they really stepped up in a major way. I thought Myles Turner in the first half maybe was the Pacers' best player through 24 minutes of this game. Another good player. In fact, every front court player who played was pretty good for the Pacers. Obi Toppin, his plus minus is going to show up at minus 14. That's the worst on the team. Everybody's going to say, he wasn't very good. He was very good, I thought. 4 for 7 from the field. Didn't even make a 3 and got to 11 points, which is tough for Obi Toppin to do. 8 boards, 3 assists. 3 assists for Obi Toppin. He was good on the glass, and when he hits the glass, 6 defensive rebounds, led the Pacers, actually. He can run. Like, I feel like he's pushing in transition a little bit more this year. He still gets off the ball eventually, but that juices the Pacers. And there's some games where he does this, where he comes in and ups the tempo and breaks up the flow of the game in a way that really helps the Pacers because they like to play that way. And I tweeted this during the game. It feels like against specifically, especially the Nick Nurse Sixers, Obi Toppin has always been very good because those kind of games, they don't get like gross or yucky, but they're just a little more in the mud than a typical game. The Sixers play different defense. It's a little more aggressive. They try to tighten the floor up. And when Toppin gets out there and speeds things up, it's tough. It's tough on defenses. And he did really well around the basket, right? He had some creative finishes in this one. He was 4 for 5 on twos. and 3 assists, 2 to Aaron Nesmith in a row in the fourth quarter that kind of put this game away. I thought it was important that he played as many minutes as he did, reaching 25 in this one. He barely played earlier this week against Milwaukee. He got the minutes back up, got some confidence, but really on a back-to-back to get both Siakam and Turner under 30 minutes, I thought, was very significant for the Pacers. So not only good for Toppin to have this game, good for him to have it specifically on the first night of a back-to-back ahead of the most important game of the Pacers season coming up. We'll get to that in just a second. Second half, Aaron Nesmith was quite good as well. 5 for 6. He made 2 threes and had 13 points. Nice finishes in the lane. Again, he continues to evolve as an in-the-lane player. His shots come and gone. Not so good stuff in this game. The bench, oh, man, it's so confusing. Like, TJ McConnell made all his shots. Thomas Bryant was 3 for 4. I already talked about Toppin playing well. Like, they had good individuals, but they weren't good as a group. In fact, that was the stretch that almost made everything I've said null and void, right? Some mix and match groups were good. McConnell was 4 for 4, but he had no assists, 5 turnovers. Thomas Bryant was 3 for 4, 6 rebounds. That seems good. His defense wasn't really there. Ben Shepherd, 1 for 4 with 5 fouls. And this one, Ben Mathurin goes 1 for 7. Like, they all did some good stuff, but mixed in some like, not so good in this one. And, you know, that group can mix and match well. The Pacers bench has been better than this, but I talked about it after the Atlanta games last week. Like, it's going on a pretty long sample of like, this is getting alarming. How many guys can they play in the playoffs? What's this going to look like? And in this game specifically, I understand why they did it, right? I would probably have planned to do the same thing. So the Pacers, again, tonight, they play the Bucks, the most important game of the season. It will end their year as the most important game they'll play this season, right? They clearly should have wanted to leave Philly with a low minutes load on every player, right? No one hits 30 minutes. You could tell they were thinking about it when they took Andrew Nembhard out for a specific moment in the fourth quarter and went, I believe, McConnell Shepherd with the game. Like, I think the Pacers were up 12 or something at the time. They were probably going to win. They had to bring back in Nembhard and Haliburton because the Sixers hit 3 threes and got it closer. So Nembhard finishes with almost 33 minutes and Haliburton at 31-22, right? Not what the Pacers wanted. But the killer stretch that made it so guys had to play a lot in the fourth, who typically probably they didn't want to play in the fourth. Late third, the Pacers went full bench. And again, I get why you do it. If you're trying to keep everyone's minutes low, if the full bench unit comes in and plays well, and the Pacers were up, I'm trying to figure out the exact moment that it became all bench. Yeah. So it ends at the 136 mark when the Sixers cut it to 3 at 74-71. But the lineup on the floor was McConnell, Toppin, Bryant, Shepherd, Mathurin. And I can't quite. Okay, they came in at the 4:33 mark, and the Pacers were up 10 at the time. They were up 10 right before that too, right? So they were up 10. If that group holds it at 10, none of the starters get even close to 30 minutes. But from that 4:33 mark to when Nembhard came in at 1:36, less than 3 minutes, it went down to 3. That stretch was dreadful. And the more bench guys on the floor at the same time recently, the worse for the Pacers. That stretch hurts them tomorrow just as much as it hurt them in this game. So the bench was good against the Bucks literally 3 days ago. 4 days now when this comes out, right? That mattered a lot. They barely won that game. They needed everything they got in that one, but they need a little more from that second unit. Haliburton with 14 and 10. He was not finishing well. He passed out of some layups again. Only 2 for 7 from deep. They're going to hope for more efficiency from him in Milwaukee because the 2 games since he's been back, they've both been double-doubles. The passing has been really good. The scoring element has not been the same as it was in that stretch post-All-Star when it was like, oh, boy, here he comes. That's Pacers-Sixers. Goofy game. Really goofy game. Just when it becomes that extent of make and miss league, it's just kind of hard to evaluate what really happened on the floor. There were some actual tactical strategy elements to this, zone defenses, rotational shifts, the back-to-back element of it all. But in the end, it was Pacers started to make shots and they won. Tonight, at stake a lot. The Bucks handily beat the Lakers on, I should know this, Thursday. No LeBron, obviously. The Pacers won against Philly on Friday, so they have both won since they played Tuesday, meaning they have the exact same record. Both are 37-28. In between, the Pistons lost to the Wizards. That came out of nowhere, so they're 37-30. So the winner of this game, regardless of the Pistons result, the winner of Pacers-Bucks gets the tiebreaker. They win the season series, they will even the season series at 2-2, but the Pacers, if they win, will have a division record of 9-5, and the Bucks, if they lose, would have a division record of 6-8, meaning the Bucks' best division record would be 8-8, and the Pacers' best division or worst division record would be 9-7. Guess what? That means the Pacers would win the tiebreaker because their division record is guaranteed to be better. So if the Pacers win, they clinch the head-to-head tiebreaker, meaning they'd be 1 game ahead in the standings, but it's really 2 games. It's 2 games because the Bucks have to pass them to be ahead of them. If the Bucks win, they will win the head-to-head series 3-1, and they will win the tiebreaker. Had the Pacers not blown that fourth quarter lead on New Year's Eve, they would already have the tiebreaker clinched right now against the Bucks. Every game matters in an NBA season. No one wants to think that way. It's a huge game. They couldn't quite keep the minutes down. It's not that long of travel from Philly to Milwaukee. It's not short. We'll see. It's as big as it gets. That tiebreaker is massive. The Bucks played very well against the Lakers, and they hadn't been playing well leading into that game. The Pacers are playing a little better, I guess, but they're coming off a 3-game losing streak. It's going to be fascinating. I'll be there. We'll break it down from the arena tomorrow night. The biggest game of the Pacers season, and they don't play Detroit again. They don't play Milwaukee again after tomorrow. They don't play the Knicks again. They don't play the Celtics again. They play the Cavs the last game of the season. I forget when the other Cavs game is. They play the Cavs 2 more times, but the Cavs are too far ahead. This is the biggest game. They don't play the Hawks again. They don't play the Magic again. They don't play the Heat. Oh, they do play the Magic again. They play the Magic 1 more time. They don't play the Heat again. This is it. This is because the Pacers won Tuesday. This is the biggest game of their regular season. If they win, that's huge. If they lose, it's going to be tougher for them to host a series. Break it all down tomorrow. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. You can find me on Blue Sky and Twitter at Tony R. East. This podcast has a Twitter account. It's at Locked On Pacers. We'll see you tomorrow night after Pacers Bucks, probably from 5-Star Forum. We'll see. Till then, everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a wonderful weekend.